Yachimo, that means greetings. I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Ranehambata Akan. Odwirafo of Akwamumaina Marukati Vimudi Akwamu Nation in North America within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So tonight we just want to go over an introduction to our institution. Our enrollment period is open now for our Nimdeesem, which is our Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree program within our institution, AKONGUASUA. We have a 21-week option, a 42-week option. So the focus of our institution, when you obtain your degree in Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, then you can move immediately into edupreneurship, which is an educational entrepreneur. Now, we did an entire broadcast on the notion of what an edupreneur is. That's a burgeoning field. We're at the forefront of that field, but it's an education entrepreneur. So yes, you can go and teach in, certain schools and settings and so forth, but educational entrepreneurs, what they do is they use their skill set, use their experience, use their education to create business opportunities for themselves and engage in self-employment immediately. We have a 21-week option for the bachelor's degree, as well as a 42-week option. But within the first 2 weeks, you receive your very first certification. We're going to get into that. And you can start utilizing that certification to go to different places of business, corporations, schools, community centers, human services organizations, in the capacity of a meditation instructor. And it's a meditation instructor certification course. And you can conduct meditation sessions with employees. When certain corporations have seminars, workforce development, they're enhancing productivity with their employees, and they have seminars, and they have someone come out for the first 10 or 15 minutes of the day-long seminar, or maybe a half an hour, to engage in a meditative practice, a mindfulness practice. They typically pay between $100 to $300 for someone to come out for about 30 minutes to conduct a session with their employees. Same thing with schools, whether it's elementary schools, high schools, colleges. Same thing with community service organizations, human services organizations like social work, social services organizations and so forth, shelters, people dealing with workforce development, therapeutic interventions. Certain clients have, therapeutic circles where they're overcoming addictions, or they're dealing with, mental health issues, and they have, groups and so forth, weekly or daily. Someone who's running the session may weekly have someone come out to conduct a basic introductory mindfulness session or meditation session so they can get their clients focused on the task at hand and so forth. So we have a number of opportunities for that. Within the first 2 weeks, you get that first certification. So you can take that credential, that certificate, and you can begin to work for yourself, scheduling these, weekly or daily or biweekly or monthly events where you conduct meditation sessions as a certified meditation instructor. But that's just the beginning. So we immediately get you on track to self-employment entrepreneurship, and you can conduct those kinds of sessions, generate your own income as you're completing your 21-week program, or if you choose the 42-week option, you can do the same thing. So let's get into some definitions first. So you see that we call the program Nimdeesem. That is the term in the Akan language. Nim means knowledge, wisdom, that which is seen or understood. Da means thing, object, deed, or entity. So Nimdee means things, objects, entities that are known or understood. Nimdee therefore means wisdom, that which is known or understood. And Nimdeesem are those affairs or issues dealing with knowledge. So the description, instead of saying a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, and philosophy, the love of wisdom and so forth, we use the ancient term Nimdeesem, the affairs or issues that deal with actual authentic knowledge. Now, on your certificate, on your diploma, it will say Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. And You will also see that the term Nimdeesem is there as well, but you will have the same kind of, certificate, diploma, just like any other, program that puts forward these, these degrees. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is our AKONGUASUA page. So AKONGUASUA is our institution. You see, we give a little history on the institution. So for those who are unaware, I've published 32 books to date. Over the past 28 years, we've curated 42 online courses, which are on this page, and we're going to go through just the basics of each one so you can have an understanding of what you'll be learning within the institution and what your degree is comprised of. But we established our institution back in 2001, so-called 2001. So it's been, we're going on, of course, the 25th year and so forth. And the publications and, the books, the classes, we also have 2 documentary films and so forth. All of this comes from this quarter century of experience, traveling to different parts of the country and different parts of the world and so forth, research, study, publishing, producing, a number of different things. So when you look on our page, you'll see that we have links to all of the 42 online courses and also links to our publications page where you can see the 32 books that we have published. So when you go to this page, we're just going to scroll down. That's just a short little quick true history of that. A couple of the live streams that we did when we talked about the notion of what an edupreneur is, an education entrepreneur. And we also talked some more about, the Bachelor of Arts degree and so forth in one of the live streams we did recently. So on this page, this is an introduction. Before we get to that, I want to just show you, this is a collage of the original flyers for the various 42 different courses. When you scroll down on the AKONGUASUA page, you'll see the original flyers. All of these courses are archived, so they can be accessed for 50% off and so forth. So some people just want to take one course and learn something. But when we're talking about our degree program, typically at major universities, when you look at what comprises a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree, typically it's between 40 and 42 courses. And once you pass those 42 courses, then you are qualified to obtain your degree, Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. We reached that 42nd course a number of months ago, really at the end of last year into the beginning of the new year and so forth. So this was the time after a quarter century of doing this work to establish our degree program. So we have 42 courses, and all of them are linked on this page. So let's look at the original flyers for each one, just so you can see what we're talking about. So when you scroll down, you'll see each one of these flyers were the original flyers. So some of these courses were 6-week courses, some of them were 4-week courses, some of them were 7-week courses and so forth. Depending on the subject matter, one of them was a 13-week course and so forth. So all of the different flyers for all 42 courses you will find here. When you click on them, you will see the definitions. So just to give you an example. RES is one of the 6-week online courses we had based on one of our books, Kemet, Hina, and Toro, The Black Nation and Divinity. And as you see here, in the language of ancient Kemet, so-called Egypt, the ancient Black civilization, our ancestral civilization of Egypt, Kemet, as well as Khanate, Nubia, you see the term Res means the south. It also means the root, the origin, and it also represents the people from the root people, the people from the beginning. This is the etymological origin of the term race. Race is not a social construct. Race was not created by the whites and their offspring. We have the term res and its cosmological foundation going back thousands of years before the whites and their offspring existed on Earth. So in this course, it was a 6-week course. It's called Race, the Etymology, Biology, Cosmology, and Divinity of Race. So we show the entire cosmological foundation tied to linguistics, tied to our ritual practices and so forth, and our culture, about how we properly understood what race actually is and how it's tied to our divinity, our identity, our biology, and culture, and so forth. So that was just one of the 42 courses. We have an identity crisis to a certain extent in our community. People are trying to figure out who they are. They make up false identities. We're fed false identities. Some of our people want to be American. Some of our people want to pretend that they're Native Americans. Some of our people want to be Asiatic. Some of our people want to be Moors. Some of our people want to be Hebrews. All of these fictitious false identities because we don't understand who we actually are. When you understand who you are, you can make proper decisions. You can build institutions. You can educate your people. You can put forward educational opportunities, entrepreneurship opportunities, and so forth. You can't have a nation building program when you don't know the fundamentals of who you actually are. So this is just one of those, contributions to that understanding. So let's go a little bit further down. So when you scroll through, you'll see the various 42 courses. And we're going to touch on each one of them just to give you a sense of what you'll be learning. But if you go to a Bachelor of Arts program in a European institution, they're going to take you through Greek pseudo-philosophy, Roman philosophy, some aspect of Hindu philosophy. They'll touch on some Chinese philosophy and so forth. Philosophical formulations that are inaccurate, that don't fit us, that are not based in reality. Many concepts that the Greeks and Romans and Hindus and so forth stole from ancient Khanid and Kemet, Nubian Egypt and so forth, and corrupted into these pseudo-philosophical ideals. This is what you will learn if you go and study, philosophy at a Western, university. When we talk about philosophy, or more properly, Nimdeesem, the affairs or issues of authentic knowledge of reality, then you get accurate information that you can apply to yourself in your everyday life to improve your condition and the condition of our people, inclusive of holistic health. So, but before we go to that, let me just touch on real quickly. We're going to go to our publications page. Nhoma is the Akan term for book or publication. So on this page on our website, you will see the front covers of all 32 of the books that I've published to date. And the ebook versions of the 32 books are free downloads. So when you scroll through, you will see that, and we're going to touch on a number of these books because many of them, or all of them, are inclusive at some point in, the 42 different courses. So as you scroll down, you'll see that, when you see the front cover, for example, we talked about earlier the Black Nation and Divinity book, or even the Rekit. Well, let's look at the Black Nation and Divinity real quick. So you click on the book cover, it either takes you directly into the book itself, the ebook version, or to the page where the book is, located. Now, there's one new book that we just recently released. And let me show you that when you see this Odwirafo book, And let me grab that right. So this is the book we just released a few months ago. It's Odwirafo True Historical Anthology. 600 pages, 8.5 by 11. And what I did with this book, it is an anthology of 12 of the 31 books. This is the 32nd book, so I published 31 books, but I took 12 of them that deal with true historical, meaning true historical information, linguistics, cosmology, trustery, history, and so forth. Put them all in one volume. The 12 books covers are on the back, so these are the 12 books that comprise this anthology. We expanded the information in the books, so there are new, revised, and expanded versions of each one of the 12 books. And this anthology is in soft covers on Amazon, but we also have a discounted 30% discount when you order directly from us. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But 12 of the 31 books are comprised in this volume. So just to give you an example of one of those texts. So we have, as we said, we have 42 courses, and you study independently. You study, say one of the courses is a 6-week course. For example, the rest course, the flyer we just showed, the etymology of race, etymology, biology, cosmology, divinity of race, that was a 6-week course, 6 sessions. They are archived. So that's one of the 42 courses you will be studying. So since it's a self-paced, self-study, degree program, what we do is you take one of those courses, you go through the entire 6 sessions, you study all of the 6 sessions, and you read the books associated with the 6 sessions and go through the entire 6 sessions. Most of those 6 sessions are on average about 2 hours. So when we had the 6-week course for rest a couple of years back, it was 6 weeks, like every Tuesday at 8 p.m. from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and so forth. So there are 6 2-hour plus sessions. You will go through all of those 6 sessions. You will read the books and the articles as you're going through the sessions. And when you are ready, we have a weekly testing. So when you're ready to test for the rest course, then we will get on a Zoom call, take you through the questions and so forth to make sure that you understand everything that you studied within the course. There's also a question and answer. So you have a full understanding, and we understand, we realize that you have a full understanding. We can verify that of what you studied in this course. Once you pass that testing period, then you completed that course. Then the next week, you go to the next course. Say it was a 4-week course. You study all of the information for that course. You go through all of the sessions and so forth. When you are ready, you let us know. We have a Zoom session. We go through all of the information in that course, make sure you have a proper grasp of that information. Then you pass that test, and we go along like that. So before we get into this, we're going to give you some examples, but first I want to give you the structure of the institution, just to show you the entire structure of the course and also the entrepreneurial component. When you register, you will go to the AKONGUASUA page. You'll scroll down to the registration button. This is a short little description, but when you click on the link up under this image, the Buy Now link, it will take you directly into the full description. So this is the page that will come up. Nimdeesem, Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree, AKONGUASUA Institution. So the degree is Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, as we said. The Akan title from the Akan people of Ghana and Ivory Coast is Nimdeesem. The Akan language is derived from the language of ancient Canadian Kemet, so you'll find the same terms with the same meanings across cultures for thousands of years. So we start off with a basic true story. We established AKONGUASUA as an institution, as we said, in 13,001, so-called 2001. And when we say the years beginning with 13,000, as you will learn in this course, within one of the first courses, The character Jesus is a fictional character who never existed. We show how Jesus never existed, Yeshua, Muhammad, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman, these various fictional characters were manufactured by the white snarl spring to enslave our people mentally and spiritually. So we debunk them, show how they were manufactured, what deities from ancient Kemet, what goddesses and gods, names and titles were stolen to manufacture these fictional cartoon characters. So since there was no character named Jesus, black or white or any other in any form whatsoever, nothing happened 2,000 years ago. So this is not 2025. We're in the midst of an astronomical cycle. It takes the Earth 26,000 years to go through its precessional cycle astronomically. And that's the position of the Earth with regards to the sun, as well as the pole with regard to the stars and so forth. It moves in a spiral cycle fashion. It takes 26,000 years for the Earth to make that full revolution with regard to the polar movements and so forth. We are in the midst of that cycle, hence the years beginning with 13,000. So this is a precise, accurate, authentic rendering of where we are in a certain cycle. So we're in 13,025, not 2025, because Jesus never existed. Nothing happened 2,000 years ago. So, and you'll learn the details of that in the various courses. But we established our institution in 13,001, so-called 2001. We established the online branch of the institution in 13,014. We also had a broadcast on Blog Talk Radio that began in 13,014, and we were teaching things with regard to the institution on Blog Talk Radio. We did like 337 Blog Talk Radio broadcast episodes that are still accessible online and so forth. So we talk about the 42 courses that reflect the 42 assessors of Ma'at, which is a sacred cycle and number in ancient Kemet. There's 42 Sepatu, or administrative divisions of the culture and country and nation of ancient Kemet. There's also 42 sacred days of the Akan ritual calendar called Adadrianine. So 42 is a sacred number, but it also happens to be, as we said before, if you Google Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy and how many courses comprise that at most major universities, you'll see that they say between 40 and 42 courses, and we fall within that range of course. So we said in the Akan language, we call it Nimdeesem. Again, your certificate will say Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, and also Nimdeesem. Nimdee defines knowledge and wisdom. Asem is defined as issues, affairs. So the issues or the affairs of knowledge and wisdom, which is a more proper definition than philosophy, meaning the love of Sophie, which is a corruption of Sophia, which the Greeks said is the female goddess of wisdom, but they stole that from the female divinity Sophie Abut in ancient Kemet, the female divinity of divine wisdom and writing. She's also called Seshat, the divine scribe. And then she's the female counterpart to the male divine scribe, Tahuti. So you're going to get that in a specific book as well. So we say the degree program is a maximum of 42 weeks. We say you study each course on your own, then we have a weekly test, including a question and answer session for any, information you need to become clear on and so forth, gain clarity on the Zoom platform. Now, some people will prefer to not just do one test per week, they will prefer to do 2 tests per week. Now let's look at that. Okay, for example, say you studied the rest course. It's a 6-session course. It was 6 weeks, so it's 6 2-hour sessions. You went through all of the 2-hour sessions. You listened to them more than once. You read the books associated with the course. You studied those books and so forth. You became, fully abreast of the information. And you contacted us and we did the test on the Zoom platform, went through the test and so forth. You cleared that. And, you cleared that particular test. You could do that 1 week, and then next week, maybe you decided you were ready for the next course. And let's say it was the Amaniye course, Nationism, the Purification of Nationalism. We're talking about nation building, restoration rooted in our ancestral religious values. So we're talking about things about establishing nation building activities like establishing training institutions, agricultural institutions, educational institutions, methods of curing disease from a holistic health perspective, establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence and so forth. So let's say the following week, you were ready, you went through this particular course and so forth, all of the sessions, and you were ready to test that week. So 1 week you did the rest course and you tested on that. The following week, you were ready for the Amaniye course and you did the test on that. But some of the courses were 4-week courses, meaning they have 4 sessions. Amaniye was one of those. So let's say you felt ready to take the test for the rest course and the Amaniye course in the same week. So you took the test for rest, we got on Zoom, you passed that, and you said, okay, I'm also ready to take the test for Amaniye. We went through the test for that, you passed that, so you passed 2 tests in the same week. And that is the maximum that we would do. So this is why we say it's a maximum of 42 weeks. So you can test for 1 course per week for 42 weeks, or if you prefer, if you're ready, you may say, I want to test on 2 courses per week. And instead of going for 42 weeks, you're cutting it in half and you'll complete the program within 21 weeks. We won't test more than 2 courses in a week. So if you took the rest course and you took the Amaniye course and you went through all the information and you tested for both of them, then you can complete 2 tests. And now you can go the next week, you can complete 2 more courses, the next week, 2 more courses. So the maximum we would do is 2 courses per week. That amounts to a 21-week program. So you can complete all 42 courses in 21 weeks, or you could just test 1 class or course per week and go through the 42 weeks. Now you may go in between. You may do some weeks, you may do 2 courses. Some weeks you'll do 1 course and you'll be in the middle. Say you finish the degree program in 30 weeks. But the maximum is 42 weeks. We're not going to have people stretching this out for years and years. Once you're ready to start, then you can move in a conscientious fashion. So 42 weeks is the maximum, but the minimum is 21 weeks. The maximum as far as length is 42 weeks. The minimum as far as length is 21 weeks. We're not going to have somebody saying, I'm ready to test out for 10 classes in a week, because that's not fair to you. You don't want to try to cram information and so forth. You want to get a great understanding of this. We say with the Nimdeesem Bachelor of Arts and Philosophy degree through AKONGUASUA, you'll be credentialed to teach, just as someone does with a degree in philosophy or history from any college or university. This includes hosting your own sessions at schools, community centers, places of employment, etc. Moreover, various organizations, businesses, schools, human services agencies, etc., have speakers come out for Black History Month, Juneteenth, Kwanzaa, commemorative observances, study groups, holistic health organizations, Black-owned businesses like bookstores, homeschool networks, and so forth. They typically will pay speakers who have some sort of credential. So when you have a credential, you can go to these various organizations. Some people will go to, a school, a college, and so forth, and teach a course or a session, once a week. For example, when we talked about the SUSU, the meditation instructor certification, or you'll go to every month, there's usually some kind of event. They need speakers. Hey, who do you know? For example, employees, they have a committee. Hey, this is Black History Month. Who do you know who has a degree in philosophy, culture from an African-centered or Afro-Africani perspective? We have money set aside in the budget to bring some cultural individual out to speak. They have that budget set aside every year, whether it's for Black History Month or Juneteenth or Kwanzaa or some commemorative event like a Martin Luther King holiday and so forth, or whatever it is. These organizations, corporations have money set aside for people to come out. They typically do not know who to look for. All they need is someone with a credential, someone with a certification, someone with a degree. So when they have the funding source that's asking, who did you pay? Who did you cut this check to? As long as they see you have an actual credential, a degree, then they simply cut the check. If it's just something word of mouth, some corporations will go ahead and let someone bring somebody in that they know by word of mouth, like, oh, this is a good guy, or this is a good woman to teach. But most funding sources, they need to see some evidence that this person has some kind of credential that qualifies them to stand in front of their employees and speak. The same thing is true with human services organizations, some community service organizations or community centers and so forth, mental health organizations and so forth. So you will have that certification and you'll be able to do that. Now, on this page, and we'll touch on some of this a little bit later as well, we talk about what an edupreneur is, educational entrepreneur. An edupreneur is someone who creates a positive value shift with the specific economic resource of learning. That's one definition. An edupreneur or education entrepreneur markets their expertise and skills to public or private schools, colleges, and universities, or for-profit and non-profit organizations using a learning platform. These professionals are educators who share their knowledge. They're also entrepreneurs because they sell their knowledge often through pay-to-access systems. Edupreneurs consider education to be an economic resource because it impacts the perceived and actual success of educated individuals. In today's society, the importance of education permeates most career paths. For example, many industries require a certain level of education for their employees. So we have a list here, entrepreneurship paid opportunities available with Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, Nimdeesem degree. So I give some true story behind what we have done over the past decade plus, having spent over a decade in the field of behavioral health and working with community organizations before I became a full-time entrepreneur. We've identified multiple opportunities within human services agencies and organizations, cultural institutions, schools, and more to serve the community and be compensated from funds already set aside for that purpose. So we give examples: Alcoholics Anonymous groups of circles, small groups of circles run by a case manager or a therapist. They have circles every week or every other day and so forth. They meet with their group, but they often once a week will bring out someone to sit with the circle and conduct, for example, a meditation session of 10 or 15 minutes to help the people get focused and so forth. That is part of your certification. You will have that certification within your degree, so you can always use the meditation, conducting meditation sessions in various settings from youth to adults. But you also have the degree in philosophy beyond conducting meditation sessions, when you can give information, you can craft a specific presentation. They may say, hey, I want you to speak on the negative effect of alcoholism or drug abuse in the Black community and how it affects families and so forth, and how to, reposition ourselves to overcome that. 10 or 15-minute presentation. You are certified to take the things that you have learned and create a presentation that will impact the community, benefit them, reframe their mindset so they're motivated to go forward and complete this program, come out of this Alcoholics Anonymous program with knowledge, purpose. They're inspired to move forward. And we've done this for over 20 years. Narcotics Anonymous is a similar kind of thing. Women's shelters and family shelters, human services organizations have weekly group sessions for those in their programs to motivate the participants to find employment, find housing, break the cycle of returning to domestic abuse or homelessness. Funds are allocated to pay various presenters on various topics, including holistic health, meditation, culture, philosophy, which is critical to shaping participants' self-worth and confidence, and more. Typically pay credentialed speakers between $100 and $300 per presentation. So they'll say, hey, we want you to come out once a week for a few weeks. We'll pay you $100 or $200 just to speak to our women's group for, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So you can have a 10, 20 minutes, and then a question and answer session. You can introduce them to knowledge that you've studied in these 31 books that we're going to go over, and you'll see how it's, impactful. We've done this for over 20 years. So we've been in all these settings and introduced this information that we're sharing with you. It transforms the minds of people, transforms their sense of self-worth, gets them more grounded, and they're motivated to overcome. So, employer cultural events calendars. Martin Luther King holiday, Black History Month, many events all over the country throughout Black History Month. Memorial Day, which is a holiday actually created by Black people after the Civil War. We created the day. It was called Decoration Day. The Whites of Narrow Spring took it over and changed it to Memorial Day, but that's when you go back to Decoration Day, the original Black Memorial Day, when we were decorating the graves and honoring the deceased who fought in the Civil War to free our people, talking about our ancestresses and ancestors who took up arms to fight in the Civil War to end enslavement. We were honoring them with that Memorial Day and so forth. That's a teachable moment there. You can talk about the Black history, true story of Memorial Day. That presentation can be a 15 or 20-minute presentation. Most people don't know about that, even though it's getting more press, like in New York Times and Washington Post and different major periodicals are starting to talk about the Black origin of Memorial Day. But every Memorial Day, you have opportunities to do a presentation, get a few $100s and so forth. But you'll see that every month throughout the year, there's some Black cultural event. January, Martin Luther King's holiday, you can always get some presenting, a job or, contract in more than one location. Maybe a school, a business, a cultural organization once a week throughout January. You can build on that. Black History Month, throughout the month, you can go to different organizations. You can also host your own events, have people come out and so forth, and you can get paid for that. On Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Black August, which you're going to learn about when you're studying for the degree and so forth, Kwanzaa, as well as many other days. Every single month of the year, there are cultural events, Black true historical or historical events, when people bring people out, and they bring their employees out monthly. They have monthly seminars for work productivity, to enhance work productivity. And one of the things that they do now is incorporate some cultural element, because that's motivational and it refocuses the mind frame of their employees. So you always have opportunities for employer cultural events calendars. When we talk about how much they pay, the corporations typically pay more. So small organizations may pay you like $100 a week or per session, or $200. Corporations go up to usually about $500. And if they're a larger corporation, they'll pay you $1,000 just to come and do a 20-minute session, because they have the money set aside and they have to spend those allocated funds. For those who like to work with youth, schools and after-school programs, there are drug prevention programs, there are cultural programs, there are, all kinds of programs for schools during the day, as well as after-school programs. So if you like working with youth, that's unlimited. Weekend programs for youth, summer programs for youth. You will always be able to, establish some contractual arrangement to conduct a basic session. What we're talking about is you go somewhere, spend 30 minutes, you get paid a couple of $100. The next day you go to a different organization, you do a 30-minute presentation, maybe an hour. So 4 to 5 times a week, you can have 4 different organizations, and you get a couple of $100 or more per day for 30 minutes to an hour's worth of work, and you're independent. African-centered bookstores, businesses, organizations, conferences, cultural events, spiritual events, study groups, all of these different things. African-centered bookstores all over the country. Every weekend, they'll have someone come out. Every Friday or Saturday or Sunday, they'll have an event. Hey, we're going to have this speaker do a book signing. Hey, we're going to have this speaker coming to talk about holistic health. Hey, we're going to have a speaker come out talking about true historical events, true history, and so forth. We're going to have a speaker coming out talking about, cultural philosophy, cosmology, ancestral religious practices, and spirituality. They're always trying to bring someone out because it's good for their business. So they have those kinds of events every week throughout the entire year. You can always establish something like that with an African-centered bookstore, but also there are Black-owned, health food stores, boutiques, cultural businesses, and so forth. And they bring speakers out because that draws people beyond just having a business and people come in and purchase their products. Like if they have, say, they sell natural soaps, natural hair care products, incense, natural toothpaste and deodorant and certain books and, a number of different things, or sculptures and things like that. They have people come in throughout the course of the day to their retail business. But they always will have something, sometimes during the week on a Wednesday evening, they'll say, hey, we're going to have a special presentation by a dynamic presenter on some great information that will open up your mind and so forth. Or on weekends, very often Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every week throughout the course of the year. So you can always book or contract some kind of presentation. Different bookstores, businesses, organizations, conferences. There are conferences across the country, cultural conferences and so forth, events, spiritual events, study groups. Some people have study groups where they get together and study a specific book, and they'll bring a presenter out who's aware of that kind of information, who can give them more insight. So all of the organizations have budgets already set aside, and they just are looking for someone to present who has some kind of credential. Also, hosting events. You can also pay, we say $50 to $100 to rent out a community meeting room, a conference space to host your own event. You can be the sole presenter, bring people out, say we're going to talk about the origin of the fictional characters, Jesus and Muhammad and Allah and Yahweh and so forth. That's a topic that many people are interested in and so forth. Or you may want to talk about, we're going to talk about holistic health from an ancestral cultural perspective. Or we're going to talk about the nature of the soul from the Akan people's perspective, the nature of consciousness and so forth, a number of different things. You'll see one of the books, and we're going to show this, the ancient Kemetic origin of the term yoga and chakra, which the Hindus stole from our people, from ancient Khanate and Kemet, Nubian Egypt, and so forth. We wrote a whole book on that. That in and of itself draws people out. So, but you can rent out a space, pay $50 or $100 for a few hours. You can do a presentation, or you can invite yourself as well as a couple other presenters. You can all present. You can have, food there, a food vendor if you want. You can have vendors who are selling books and other, cultural items and so forth. And they can, pay for a table, and you draw a number of people out. People come out. They, give donations, or they purchase. You can have an event yourself. Some people host those kinds of events once a week or once a month. So as you can see, when you go through the details and so forth, you'll see that our major focal point is not only for you to receive a degree. Some people have, degree programs, and it's cultural, and they have a cultural institution, and they have a bachelor's degree and so forth, and people receive that degree and they have some knowledge, but then it's sort of, well, they just say, well, I have a degree now. Our focus is to immediately put you on the path to begin to generate income. You don't wait 21 weeks before you can generate income. Within the first 2 weeks, after the first 2 tests, You'll have a meditation instructor certification credential, and you'll be able to go out and test or conduct business immediately. So let's look at that one first. So we want you to be fully grounded in the knowledge put forward by these, these 42 courses and the 31 books, as well as many, many articles and other materials that you'll be studying through that process, so you can be grounded in this information. You'll be a storehouse of knowledge for our people. But in addition to that, we want you to be able to begin to generate income right away. The very first test that you will have is the very first course, and we recommend this, and we put this first immediately. The first thing that you're going to study within the curriculum is the SUSU course. So when you go to the SUSU page on our website, you'll see the flyer for that. Now, this course as a standalone course, we teach this, it's a 4-week course. Every 4 weeks, like once a month, we'll teach this course. It's a 4-week course. It's a 4-week online course. Once people go through the entire course and so forth, then they obtain their certification as a meditation instructor. They're certified, and they can take that, credential and begin to, generate income for themselves while impacting the community. So you'll see the flyer here. SUSU is the ancient, and you'll see the scribe here. His name is Amenhotep, the son of Hapu. He lived over 3,300 years ago in ancient Kemet. You see him in the common meditative posture and so forth. We go into the true history of that. We say SUSU is the ancient Akan term for meditation. SUSU originated in our ancestral culture of Afuraka, Africa, tens of thousands of years ago. This ancient practice has been utilized to regulate physical, emotional, and mental balance for millennia in varied expressions wherever our people have migrated in the world. The scientific benefits of meditation for youth and adults have been well documented. And this is key with regard to your capacity to become an edupreneur, educational entrepreneur, within the first 2 weeks. Your selling points for conducting meditation sessions as a certified instructor and it's introductory wherever you go. Enhancing learning outcomes, regulating behavior, overcoming anxiety and depression, rebalancing hormones, lowering blood pressure, reducing stress, regulating weight loss, overcoming addictions, developing discipline, maintaining focus to overcome obstacles to short and long-term goals. This is why corporations now incorporate meditation or mindfulness sessions with their employees, and they bring people out for that. This is why elementary schools incorporate 5 or 10 minutes of meditation in the beginning of the school day for all the children, so they can be focused for the rest of the morning. Then they do a short meditation session after lunch and so forth, so they can be focused for the rest of the afternoon. So it reduces anxiety. It also helps them be more focused, so they're not engaging in confrontations or fighting and arguing and so forth. They've seen great benefit for just introducing 5, 10, 15 minutes of meditation, every day. That greatly enhanced learning outcomes for students. So they've done that in elementary schools, as well as high schools, as well as colleges. And of course, with employees, but the same thing is true when we go to human services organizations, like we talked about, women and family shelters, when people have, they're dealing with different forms of addiction, whether it's gambling, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's, different forms of substance abuse, mental health centers and so forth. When therapists are sitting with their clients, meditation greatly enhances their healing process and so forth. So they know about the enhancing learning outcomes. They know about regulating behavior. They know about overcoming anxiety and depression. If you're working with women who are in a women's shelter or homelessness and so forth, and they're trying to get back on their feet, they're assigned a social worker to assist them with housing, job opportunities, and things like that. But overcoming the stress and anxiety and depression that's associated with having to been forced to go into a shelter and so forth. That greatly assists when they have a meditative practice, and this is why they incorporate that, as well as holistic health and so forth. And you learn things about that within this course. So it has great utility and it's widespread from youth to adults. This 4-week course is the first course that you will study. So this is the first one in your syllabus when you sign up in our degree program. The first course you'll study is this 4-week course. That means it's 4 sessions, 4 2-hour sessions. Some of them are 90 minutes, but in general, 2-hour sessions. You'll study all of them, self-study, self-paced. When you complete the entire set of 4 weeks or 4 courses, or 4 sessions rather, and read the books and so forth, and you say, okay, I'm ready to test on the SUSU course. We'll schedule a day, like a Monday night or so forth. We'll go through on Zoom the questions and answers. You show and demonstrate that you understand this information. And once you complete that, this one, and then there's a related course and so forth, which is another 4-week course. So within 2 weeks, part 1 of SUSU and part 2 of SUSU, you complete those 2 within 2 weeks. If you started, on Monday next week, then you'll finish the first course that next week, by the end of next week. And then the following course, you'll finish that the following week. You've completed those 2 courses. You will test on those 2 courses within 2 weeks. You have 2 certifications, parts 1 and part 2, and your certification. Let me show you quickly what that looks like. Hold on one second. I just want you to get a sense of what you will receive. So when we say you won't have to wait 21 weeks or 42 weeks to receive your degree before you can begin to generate income, we want you to start generating income immediately. And while you're studying, you can start that process. So it says, having successfully completed our SUSU Meditation Instructor Certification course, you've thereby earned the title of Odwirafo Instructor and so forth. We give the date, shows the institution and all of that. So within the first 2 weeks, you'll have this certification. And you can take that credential and say, I'm a certified meditation instructor. I can go to schools, whether it's, young people, K through, 8, or high schools, or colleges, or corporations for employees, human services organizations, cultural events, whatever it is. You are certified, just like any other person who's certified, to conduct meditation sessions on an introductory basis, which most people, that's what they're looking for, something introductory that focuses on holistic health, reducing stress, anxiety, enhancing learning outcomes, and enhancing work productivity. Those are the major areas. Enhancing work productivity for corporations, as well as lowering stress and anxiety for schools, enhancing learning outcomes, as well as regulating behavior for other organizations, lowering depression, anxiety, mental focus, holistic health outcomes, and so forth. So those major areas, you can show direct impact, immediate tangible benefits for SUSU, for meditation. They see the immediate benefits and they see it's well worth them paying you $100 to help their employees or their clients, achieve a higher state of mental and physical wellness and soundness. So it's wide open from that point. So within the first 2 weeks, you have that certification. You can start generating money right away and perpetually while you're continuing to study for the remainder of your 21-week program or your 42-week program, or if you're in between, like the 30-week process, that's what you will have. I want to show some of the information in some of the books, just so you'll see that some of the information that you will be studying, and it's information that other people don't have. So again, someone else has a bachelor's degree in philosophy, they won't have the information that you have. the well-researched information you have that's totally different than what, they learned about Greek philosophy, which is not applicable today. It wasn't applicable during the time of ancient, quote unquote, ancient Greece. Certainly not applicable now, but Afro-African or African philosophy is. So one of the courses dealing with identity, one of our books that we published, Africa, The Origin of the Term Africa. Now let's look at that. We are the first to demonstrate conclusively that in the Meduten, the hieroglyphs and so forth of ancient Kanit and Kemet, the term Afrika, Afrika as well as Afuraka is the origin of the term Africa. When people try to teach that Africa came from a Roman general, or it came from the Greeks or the Latins, or the Hindus, or the Arabs and so forth, we debunk all of that. We show the corruption of the term in Greek and Phoenician and Latin and Sanskrit and, Greek and quote unquote Hebrew and so forth. We show all those corruptions. And then we show the original term and its cosmological foundations, its linguistic origins in our ancestral language and culture and cosmology of ancient Kanit and Kemet. So for example, we show that the term Ka not only means soul, but it also means land, a highland above the banks of the Nile and so forth, Ka or Kai. We show the Meduten Torah, the hieroglyphs for that. And by the way, 2 of the courses that you will be studying is Meduten Torah Part 1, which was a 6-week course, and Meduten Torah Part 2. That's learning how to read and write the language of ancient Kanit and Kemet, learning how to read and write the hieroglyphs. So you have a basic fundamental understanding of the language of ancient Kemet and learning how to read and write these symbols, and then showing the connection and the identity of that ancient language to the languages of West and Central and South Africa today. So it's a continuous practice, language, culture, and so forth. So studying the language also enhances your knowledge of philosophy and culture and spirituality and so forth. So we're not going to get too far into it, but one of the major title, most ancient title of the creator of the universe is Ra in ancient Kemet. The creatress of the universe is Ra'et. So the god Ra, the Ntoro, Ra, and the Ntoro, the goddess Ra'et. Ra and Ra are the creator and creatress of the universe. When they move through matter, they take on the titles Af, Ra, or Afura, and Afuraet. When Ra takes on the sacred form or symbol of the flat-horned ram, he's called Afu Ra, or Ra moving through the Afu, Ra moving through the earth, like the solar energy penetrating earth and warming up the earth and going into the quote-unquote underworld and so forth. The spirit of Ra, when it penetrates the earth and so forth and moves within the earth, it becomes Afu Ra. And that's his title. And Ra'et is called Afu Ra'et. So here they are in the sacred boat in the quote unquote underworld when the sun sets in the west and is moving in the underworld, so to speak. Symbolically, Ra becomes Afu Ra. And Ra'et, so this is Ra standing in his pavilion. And then you see the goddess Ra'et standing in front of him in both of these images. I took these images when I was in Kemet in Egypt, in the tomb of Seti, in the Valley of the Kings and so forth. It spells Afu Ra in both of these different images. So we just simply show that in the book, and we're not going to go through the entire book. I just want you to see those images so you have a better understanding. Let me go back up real quick. So once again, this is right as Afura and Afuraet, another late period image of Ra'et as Afuraet. Even when the Greeks took over, they were imitating her. Here's Ra'et in the temple of Khensu, in the precinct of Mut, in the temple of Apet Asetu. I took that image when I was there. I also took this image when I was in that temple and so forth. This is another image of Ra'et on one of the pylons in the great temple of Apet Asetu, which the whites in our spring call Karnak. You can see her brown skin and so forth, but this is a representation of Ra'et, the creatress of the universe. So when Ra and Ra'et moved through the primordial land, the first Ka, the land was called the Ka of Afura, or Afura Ka, the Ka'et of Afura, Afura Ka'et, the land of the creator, the land of the creatress. So when we say we are Afurakani people, or Afurakani people, or Afurakani people, we are children of the creator and creatress. When you say Afuraka, you're saying the land Ka of the creator Afura. When you say Afuraet, Kaet, that's the feminine version, the land Kaet of Afuraet, the creatress. And if you're an Afurakani man and Afurakani woman, we are children of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress. That's what it means to be, quote unquote, African, or Afurakan, or Afurakani. So it ties us to the creator and creatress and creative power, divinity, and so forth. That's something that we proved in our book that no other publishers or authors had that information until they started studying our work. We first put that out over 20 years ago in our book, Kukutuntun, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, which you will be studying in this program and so forth, laid it out. And then later on, scholars from here as well as around the world started incorporating our stuff, and you'll see it if you Google it in different authors' publications around the country and different parts of the world. So I'm going to go through this, the Odwirafo book, the 600-page book we showed you in the beginning. There are 12 books in that anthology. I'm going to go through that quickly. Afuraka, Afuraka, The Origin of the Term Africa was the first book in that series. The next book in the series is Kukutuntun, The Ancestral Jurisdiction. This is the text wherein we demonstrate that the fictional characters, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Moses, Aaron, David, Muhammad, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman, Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, and so forth. All of these characters are fictional characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever. We show you how they were manufactured, what deities from ancient Kemet they stole titles from in certain aspects of cosmology and applied them to fictional white characters and so forth. We go into detail about all that, as well as cosmology and trustery and spirituality and ritual practice and so forth in this book. This is one of the books that you'll be studying that's incorporated in a number of different courses within the 42-week process. And just to give you a couple of highlights so you can see it. So this is the deity Khensu, also called Khensu Nefer Hetep Heru, the son of the great god whose name is Amen and so forth. So Khensu was corrupted into Khensu by the whites in their offspring, and Yesu in Hebrew, Yesu, Yeshua, Yeshu, Yesu, Yeshua, and so forth. Khensu became Jesus in Greek, and Jesus in Jesus in English and so forth, Jesus in Spanish. So this is a corruption, the white corruption, the fictional white character who never existed. Kensu is a spiritual force that animates the moon. So the moon, as you see it right now, the masculine force animating the moon right now, one of those divinities is Kensu. There's a form of Heru, son of Alsar and Alset. He is called, one of his titles is Kensu, and Alset, the goddess Alset, who's corrupted into Isis, is called Alset in ancient Kemet. She's nursing the baby Kensu. One of her titles is Merit. So Merit is nursing Kensu that was corrupted into Merit or Mary, nursing Kensu, so Jesus, the Yeshu or Yeshua, Jesus, and so forth. When you look at the pull this down right quick. The title of Aset, who was corrupted into Isis. One of her titles as the beloved one is Merit. As you can see in the Medud and Torah on the hieroglyphs, Merit. Merit was corrupted into Mary, as we said, and Miriam, and Mari and Maria, and so forth. And therefore you get Mari or Mary and Jesus, corruption of Merit and Kensu. This, by the way, is the great God Amen, who they end their prayers with Amen or Amin in Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. This is the great mother Amenet. So the great God is Amen, the great goddess is Amenet. There are two halves of the divine whole called the Supreme Being. And their creative power that animates them is Ra and Ra'ed, and they send Ra and Ra'ed out to create the universe. Just like you are a being and you have life force energy surging through you, that is your Ra force or your Ra'ed force. So if you're a Black man, you're like an emanation of Amen in your being. And the life force, solar energy within you is your Ra force. So you as Amen take your Ra force and direct it to go create. You're an Afurai Kaidi woman, a Black woman. You're an emanation of the great mother divinity, Amenet. You're like her in a microcosm. The life force energy surging through you. Your fire power and so forth, your procreative power is Ra'et, the creatress. So the great being is Amen and Amenet. And the solar fire, life force energy moving inside of them is the solar fire power of Ra and Ra'et. So the great being, Amen and Amenet, direct the creator and creatress to go out and create the universe. So this is Amen and Amenet. The whites and offspring got rid of the idea of Amenet in the minds of our people. So we would think there was no great mother. These are colossal statues of Amen and Amenet, the great father and great mother, supreme being, and so forth. So we show the great god Ptah corrupted into the fictional character Buddha. We explain that in detail. We show the twin male divinities of the Nile River, the spiritual force animating the Nile River. In the south, he's called Hapraset or Mu Hapraset, the waters Mu of Hapraset, the southern Nile. Hapmet is Hap of the north. He's the masculine spirit force animating the northern Nile. Mu Hapmet is the waters Mu of Hapmet, the northern Nile. Muhammad was corrupted into Muhammad, and they said that was a white Arab who invaded Kemet and so forth and other lands and took over and brought Islam and all of that. We exposed the fraud of all of that. So that's just a sampling of what's in that particular text. But when you look at that text, you'll see that that's one of the texts that we use in different courses when you're studying and so forth. So you'll learn about all of that information. Give you another example. In our book, The Okra Complex, The Soul of Akonfo. That's one of we have an entire 6-week course on that, and it talks about the term akra and okra, the masculine and feminine term for soul, the divinity that governs the head region. So there's a spiritual force in your head region that in our ancestral culture, all across the continent of Africa, Africa, we talk about the soul. It's a male divinity that's assigned to dwell with you in your head region if you're male, a female divinity if you're female, and it's that strong force in the head that's always pulling you towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with divine order and disinclining you from thoughts, intentions, and actions that are against divine order. So you have a divine consciousness, a masculine force if you're a Black male, a feminine force if you're a Black female. It's like the spirit's brain and so forth. So your divine consciousness that's directly connected to the consciousness of the Supreme Being. We go into detail about that cosmology and so show comparisons between ancient Khanid and Kemet, various cultures across the continent of Africa, as well as into North America when we continued our traditions in the Hoodoo tradition, the Juju tradition, the Voodoo tradition, the Gullah and Geechee traditions, the Gree, various traditions. So, but the nature of divine consciousness, the nature of the soul as divine consciousness, we did an entire 6-week course on that. Based on that particular book, you have access to that book for free and so forth. All the 31 books are free. You'll be studying that and so forth. You complete that 6-week course. You test on it that particular week. You pass that test, then you go to the next course. But I'm just showing you some of the books that are based on that the courses are based on. Another course is the 6-week course that we call Uben Shang, the Ancestral Summons. And that's another 6-week course that you would study based on this book, Uben Shang. And it talks about the ritual practices of ancestral culture, pouring libation, ritual song, ritual dance, ritual chant, ritual prayer, ritual meditation, all these different things and their utility with regard to our spiritual health. Let's get to another text that we mentioned, a true historical text, but it's also cosmological as well. This is always something that shocks people, but it's important for true historical reasons and cultural. AKONGUASUA, the origin of the term yoga, Kara, Kasa, the origin and nature of the chakra. We did an entire 6-week course on that based on this book. So we show how in the language and culture of ancient Khanid and Kemet, they took the term for Ankh, which is also written and pronounced Yonk and so forth, and they corrupted into, and this particular spelling is the Ionk or Yonk or Ionk spelling. And we show etymologically how in Sanskrit, the language of the Hindus and so forth, they took the term Yonk, and they say that the origin of the term yoga comes from Yonk in Sanskrit, which means to yoke. And yoke in English comes from yunk in Sanskrit, but that yunk, meaning to yoke in Sanskrit, is stolen from yonk in ancient Kemet. And we actually have the hieroglyph of the ankh around the neck of the animal in the form of a yoke. It's the yonk and so forth. The yonk is also a yoke. So we prove that etymologically and cosmologically in that particular text. And we also show in the second part of the book, and it's a great deal of detail, we show the original meditative postures that you find in quote unquote Hinduism and Buddhism and so forth in the culture of ancient Kemet when the scribe here is sitting before the sacred spirit animal totem of the divinity of divine wisdom. That seated posture of meditation is common. We also show the other common expressions of that in Kemet. We also show that the term kara kara was corrupted into kakra or chakra in Sanskrit, stolen directly from ancient Kemet. And the root is kara, which means a sacred shrine, energy, space, and we go into detail about that. So yoga and chakra are terms that come from the language and cosmology and culture of our people tens of thousands of years ago, before the White Nile Spring existed on Earth, before there was a Hindu walking around on Earth, before there was an Asian. We were already using yonk and kara, which was corrupted into yonk or yoke, and kakra or chakra thousands of years later and misappropriated by the White Nile Spring. We also touched on this earlier about the male divinity of divine wisdom, and there's also the female divinity of divine wisdom and so forth. We were talking about the cosmology of divine wisdom and how we access wisdom and the sacred symbolism associated with that in this particular text. We mentioned earlier when they say philosophy and Sophia being the goddess of wisdom and so forth, and philosophy means the love of wisdom. Well, the goddess Sophia in Greek, and you'll see the so-called Hebrew, which is a fictional group as well, use the term Sophie, meaning wisdom. That comes from the female divinity Seshat, which means the divine scribe, but she's also called Sophic Abu, and that's where you get Sophic Abu became Sophia, Sophia Abu, and Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, but she is the female divinity of divine wisdom and writing. Tahuti is the male divinity of divine wisdom and writing and divination. So, but there's a great deal of cosmology and trustery and culture and social organization associated with those two divinities. So this is why we have that book and that text. We also have one of the other 12 books in this anthology that you will be studying is the book called Rekit Hinasperet, the etymology and cosmology of the terms religion and spirit. And those terms are found in the terms Rekit in ancient Kemet, which became religion is re-legging or leggi. Leggi came from Reki in ancient Kemet, to rebind or refasten or retie and so forth. And then you also have the term seperet. So we go into detail about that. Another book you can download for free. And we also have the term seperet in ancient Kemet. And we go into detail, of course, about the etymology and cosmology of that as well. So the term religion, the term spirit, where it comes from, what it actually means in comparison to the misinformation put forward by the White Nile Spring now and their fake pseudo-religions and so forth. You need that grounding, that understanding, so you understand what real ancestral religion is, what spirituality is, even though when you're going to teach like a meditation session, you're not going to give them that detailed information. You're just going to conduct a basic session so they can engage in mindfulness, reducing stress, anxiety, enhancing learning outcomes, increasing work productivity, and so forth. Now, some people afterwards want more information. They say, hey, where can I learn more about this? Then you can give them that information as well. But most of the time when you go to a place of employment or a social services organization, human services organization, places like that, certain schools, you're giving them information that's introductory, but also has a tangible benefit. When you go to cultural organizations, events, cultural events, Black bookstores, Black-owned businesses, they typically want more deep, deep information that's well researched and so forth. And you can go into detail about whatever you want to. And let me give you one more from this or a couple more from this text, just so you can see what we're dealing with. And then we'll show a few more of the samples of the courses, just so you have a better idea. So Anidaho is another one of the books in this anthology. We did an entire course on that, an entire 6-week course on that and so forth. This particular book comprised 4 research articles that we combined into one book. One of them is significant, the origin of the term God in the language of ancient Khanate and Kemet. So we actually show you the entire cosmology of the sacred animal totem, which is the sacred Ganga, or Ganga, which is the goose and the gander and so forth, as you can see right here. Ganga is the terminology. So we go into detail about that, and then we show how the term Ga in Proto-Indo-European comes from the term Ga, which is a title of Amen and Amenet in ancient Kemet. So the term God and Goddess is taken from Ga and Nganga in ancient Khanate Kemet, that was corrupted into Ga, later Go, and Got and Gat in European languages and so forth, but they don't understand the original term, why it's a descriptive title of Amen and Amenet, what it has to do with the sacred role of the animal totem of the goose and the gander as the sacred cacklers whose sacred sound vibrations set in motion the primordial matter at the beginning of creation and so forth. And those sacred sound waves were Ga, Ga, and so forth. And this is why they have that title. We go into detail about that. So when you learn about God, Goddess, religion, spirit, divine consciousness, trustery, culture, all these things that comprise Nimdeesem, actual wisdom and knowledge, not the quote unquote love of philosophy, and the philosophy is pseudo philosophy. We give you real philosophy. We also have our text, Kokobo, which is especially important at this particular juncture in our trustery and so forth. It was once again, it's another book that was comprised of 4 different articles that we combined into one book. And we're showing the divine prohibition against dissexuality, homosexuality in ancient Kemet, and topics revolving around that. The White Snarl Spring tried to put forth this false idea that we were accepting of homosexuality, dissexuality in ancient Khanate and Kemet, which is totally inaccurate. So we show the actual texts from ancient Kemet, show the translations, and show how we always balance, honored the balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the great God and the great goddess, the goddesses and gods, the ancestresses and ancestors, the balance between the Afurakani man, Afurakani woman, and so forth. So we go into detail about that in that text. So now that you have a basic understanding of what the approach is, you'll see that we have a number of different courses. In this particular course, we're talking about the spiritual forces that govern the 7-day week, the solar, lunar, planetary bodies, but they also govern the 11 major body systems: the endocrine, reproductive, lymphatic, immune system, renal system, nervous, cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive, exocrine, skeletal. So when we're studying ancestral religion and culture, we're also studying geology, we're also studying biology, we're also studying astronomy, we're also studying quote unquote psychology and so forth. All of those disciplines are included when we study our ancestral religious and spiritual practices. That wasn't up on the screen. So Banab Jedet, sacred ram divinity corrupted into Aries. Patamin, the sacred bull divinity corrupted into Taurus. Shu and Tefnut, the male and female twins and so forth, corrupted into 2 male, Castor and Pollux, Gemini. Kepra, the beetle, corrupted into a crab, being Cancer. The Shesep in Ankh, misnomered Sphinx, but it's called Shesep Ankh or Shesep in Ankh, the illuminated life, governed by the deity Heru Badeti, the sacred lion form, misnomered Leo. Auset, the virgin, corrupted into Virgo. She's misnomered Isis, but it's Auset. Ma'at, the female divinity of divine law and balance, The scales of Ma'at are the scales of balance. She is corrupted into Libra. Serket, the scorpion goddess with the water scorpion on her head, corrupted into Scorpio. Sekhmet, the warrioress goddess. She's corrupted into Ophiuchus, the 13th sign of the zodiac. Neat, who's a divine weaver, but she's also an archeress on the hunt and so forth, and she has the bow and arrow that was corrupted into Sagittarius. The great flat-horned ram of the south, Kunim, was corrupted into a goat, Capricorn. And then we have Hapi, the spirit that animates the Nile River. He's called the water bearer, and he pours out the water that fills up the river and so forth. He's called Aquarius by the White Star Offspring. And then you have the male and female twin fish divinities, Anit and Remi, corrupted into Pisces by the White Star Offspring. So the attributes of these forces in nature, how those spirits impact our physical and spirit bodies, give rise to a proper notion of philosophy. The White Star Offspring took fragments of these things and created this pseudoscience of astrology, where they give a great deal of misinformation. They stole names and titles from these deities and certain symbolism and certain bullet points, but then they corrupted the philosophy throughout. Same thing with regard to Nimdeesem, authentic numerology of the divinities. We did a whole course on that. We also did, true historically, Aperu, the Hebrews never existed, the cosmology of the crossover in Kemet. We're showing here that there was never a group of individuals called ancient Hebrews. There weren't any Black Hebrews, there weren't any white Hebrews, there weren't any Hebrews, period. Aperu is where they corrupted the term Hebrew from and so forth. And we're talking about spiritual, ancestral spirits and so forth. It's the cosmology in ancient Kemet. Talking about Hebrew means to cross over and so forth. They stole that from the cosmology of the crossover of when someone transitions and dies and goes to the ancestral realm, and the entire process whereby one goes to the pristine community of honorable ancestresses and ancestors led by the male deity of divine wisdom, Tahuti, who they corrupted into Moses. So we go into detail about all of that in that course. So there are different aspects. When we talk about the Amaniye course, we talked about a little bit earlier, we're talking about nation building, methods of food production and preservation, methods of curing disease, establishing a military structure, establishing educational institutions and training institutions, not just colleges and, elementary schools and so forth, but also training institutions, establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence, manufacturing of clothing and so forth, and textiles, also the acquisition of land, building homes and so forth, all the elements of nation building, restoration. We go into detail about that in that particular course. We have 9 different courses on the Hoodoo tradition, but that goes into cosmology. We have our book, Obai Tain Afuraikani Womanhood. That 13-week course was taught by our sister Ama Ma'ati, and that's part of the training and so forth. We also had the Oberima Afurakani Manhood book, and part of that book has a course, Oberima Sem, 13-week course based on that book and so forth. Part of this, regimen. We also have part 2 in total 2 Senea, parts 1 and part 2. And you see it's called the biospirituality of the goddesses. So when we talk about gods and goddesses, we also are talking about their shrines in the body. So every one of the organs and systems in your body are sacred to certain forces in creation. So when you're studying biology and all your different organs and systems, when you look at creation, there are spiritual organs that make up creation, just like you have physical organs that make up your individual unique creation. And there's a correlation between your physical organs and systems and the forces in nature. So the biospirituality of the goddesses, we show who these goddesses are and their shrines in the body. like one governing the cervix and so forth, one governing the system of glands and so forth, all these different parts of the body. So when you study philosophy, you're also studying biology. You're also studying geology. You're also studying agriculture. You're also studying systems of government. We have 9 different hoodoo courses. One of them is Ahosign, talking about grounding, rooting, sprouting, flowering, overcoming addiction, depression, anxiety, irateness, part of that spiritual practice, inclusive of susu or meditation and so forth, elemental restoration. So you're getting a great deal of information. This is the Medut Toro Divine Inscription, reading and writing the language and hieroglyphs of Kemet, parts 1 and part 2. These are some of the hoodoo courses. These are some of the courses dealing with like the Moors. Moor means dead, showing that Moorish philosophy is nonsense. True historical information in this Anidaho course. So this 6-week course, ritual celibacy and cyclical fasting for alignment. So we're taking people through this process of fasting for purification, as well as ritual celibacy for purification and self-control, balance, focus, and so forth. The spiritual and physical benefits of ritual celibacy and cyclical fasting for realigning yourself physically and spiritually. So we're also dealing with holistic health. One of our books is Nkwamua Whole Life Journal, where we talk about holistic health and so forth. Baiti Seneb, cosmology of twin flame marriage. So we look at the sacred, symbolic marriage of the deities like Amen and Amenet, great mother and father, supreme being, Shu and Tefnut, Alsar and Alset, Set and Nebethet, Ra and Ra'et. These different marriages of the deities, when you look at these different forces working together in creation like electricity and magnetism, electromagnetism, when you look at fire and water and earth and air and so forth, and the spiritual forces that govern these things, you'll see these same relationships in your physical body with the water and the fire and the mineral elements and so forth, and the oxygen, but also in your spirit body. So you learn how to balance yourself when you look at the model of these deities and their marriage relationships and familial relationships in the cosmology of our culture. Then they show you how to engage in a balanced way, familial relationships, love relationships, relationship with your physical health, your physical body, your spirit body, and so forth. The Honam Su course, 6-week course, the spiritual anatomy. So again, just like you have 11 major organs and systems in your body, or organ systems in the body, just like you have major parts of your physical anatomy that regulate your entire body and all your organs and glands and so forth, your spirit body has spiritual organs. And when you align yourself, just like you take care of all your organs, your heart, your spleen, your lungs, your brain, your, pancreas and so forth, you eat the right foods and take certain herbs and so forth to keep yourself in balance. When you engage in ritual practice to maintain balance in your spiritual organs so you can be a balanced individual, so you won't be self-destructive. If you do make legitimate mistakes, you have the ritual process to get yourself back on track and so forth. This goes into detail about mental health, psychological balance, all these different things. So as you can see, all of these 42 courses, when you go through these courses and so forth, and you go through these 31 books that we've published, as well as over 100 articles that we've published, and additional information that we touch on in the courses, other publications as well that we didn't publish that other, sound authors have published and so forth. You take the 21-week option or the 42-week option, or you fall somewhere in between, like around the 30-week option and so forth. You'll be well grounded in true philosophy, Nimdeesem, actual authentic wisdom, not just philosophy, Greek and Roman and Latin, and Hindu and some Asian philosophies that are not viable. But you'll be grounded, even though we will touch on that just to let you know what people are studying, so you have something to compare it to. So you will be abreast of what they have learned and so forth in comparison to where they stole original concepts from, corrupted them, and put them forward as philosophy. That's actually very hollow. But you'll understand, you'll know what they have been studying in schools of philosophy around the country, but then you have the real thing as well. But when you have that degree, bachelor's degree in philosophy, Bachelor of Arts in philosophy, Nimdeesem, you'll be grounded in our culture, philosophy, and so forth, and you can go forward and teach our people, but you can give them tangible tools immediately to enhance their lives, youth as well as adults. Starting off with Susu, the meditation instructor certification within the first 2 weeks. You can start generating money immediately within the first 2 weeks. And throughout your studies, you can do that. But also when you start teaching higher points of philosophy, when you study all these books and courses, and you're invited to speak at, or you seek out presentations during Black History Month in February, Martin Luther King holiday in January, cultural events at corporations, cultural events throughout the course of the year, African-centered bookstores, Black, homeschool networks, African-centered schools across the country, colleges. Colleges are one source that, Black student unions at major universities and colleges, they will bring out speakers throughout the course of the year to teach about culture and philosophy, because they're learning about misinformation in college about, Greek philosophy, Arab philosophy, and so forth. They want somebody who can come and teach the real thing. So they have money set aside for Black student unions to bring speakers out, whether they're doing book signings or just doing lectures. They pay you to come out. They have the money set aside. They must spend it, so they look for people who they can bring out. They do that throughout the course of the school year. So every single month, you have multiple opportunities at places of employment, organizations, not-for-profit, for-profit, schools, if you're into that, as well as hosting your own events and so forth to generate income and impact the community in a positive capacity. So that is the information I want to share with you tonight. Enrollment is open now. So let me show you about the enrollment process. So you can start at any time. Enrollment is open now. You can start your studies, and when you finish the first 2 courses, you're ready to take your first test on Susu Part 1, the Meditation Instructor Certification Part 1, and Part 2. Within the first 2 weeks, you get that certification. You can start generating funds, for yourself as an entrepreneur and edupreneur, and you can continue your studies. So you're going to the AKONGUASUA page on the website. You see this introductory piece, which is just the first page, the Buy Now button. You click on that. So you see that the registration fee is $600, and there's a payment option, payment plan option. So one is for new students, which is most of you. Now, there are certain individuals that says registration fee for Susu certified students. There are some people who have taken our Susu course already, and they were already certified meditation instructors. But they also wanted to get their bachelor's degree. So for those individuals, if you have already been certified through Susu, you would choose that one. But if you haven't taken our Susu certification course, it is going to be included within the first 2 weeks. So you would click on registration fee, new students. And when you go to checkout, this is where the payment plan option comes in. This is the checkout page. You fill in your information here and so forth. But at the bottom, you'll see Afterpay is an option for interest-free installments of $150. So if you're not able to cover the entire amount up front, you can register and click on Afterpay. It'll take you through that Afterpay process. It's similar to Affirm. Like if you book flights and you have the option for Affirm, or if you go on Amazon, you make a big purchase, you can pay in 4, or Shopify, they give you 4 installment payments. So you can pay $150 up front, and that's your registration. And then, they will set up a schedule for you to pay the remaining 3 payments over time, over the next couple of months and so forth. But starting off with the, first payment, that's all you need to start. And you can start studying right away. We'll send you the information. We'll send you the classes in order. But the first 2 courses is Susu Part 1, Meditation Instructor Certification. That's the first one you're going to study. And then Part 2, which is called Karakasa, but it's Susu Part 2. That's the second one. And you get 2 certifications for Part 1 and Part 2. But Part 1 is all you need to start going out and generating income right away within the first 2 weeks. On the publications page, as well as on this page, the AKONGUASUA page, you'll see that the first thing that we put up is a short little video talking about our book, the anthology, and the, link to the book itself. So once again, this is the 600-page book, and some of the information we were just looking at. The book is in full color, 600 pages, is 8.5 by 11. So it's a large, like encyclopedia size, book. But it's 12 of the 31 books, all in one volume, expanded and revised and expanded. We just released this in March. So it's online, it's on Amazon. But Amazon, they take 60% off the top. For all booksellers, that's their price of distribution. So for example, if you were selling a book for $10, if you wrote a book and you were selling the book for $10, Amazon is going to take $6 and they're going to give you $4. So this is why you have people who, they have their books and they have them on Amazon, but you can also order the book at a 30% discount if you order through us directly from my website. So let me show you that real quick. So you can go on the website now and you can order this text, the Odwirafo text, the book, you'll see. And there's an option also for this book. You can pay in 4 installments of $13 each. So we recently lowered the price because Amazon dropped their prices as well. So we were able to pass on that price drop to, our customers. So again, it's 600 pages, 8.5 by 11, full color. And Amazon charges more when you print in color. So the book is $52. But it's actually $44 plus shipping. Shipping is $8. So it's $44 plus shipping. But we have a payment plan option for that as well. And when you scroll down, you'll see that. You fill out your information, and then you'll see that you can pay 4 interest-free installments of $13. So you pay the first $13 installment, and then we ship the book out to you. Give about 2 weeks for shipment and so forth, because Amazon prints the books and they ship them to us, and then we ship them out to you. So if you want to, do the payment plan option, you can do that way. You can pay $13 up front and get the book that way. And then, you'll pay Afterpay. Afterpay will send you emails and let you know what the payment schedule is going to be to pay off the remainder of the text. So if you want to order the book now just to see what the text is about and the information you'll be studying and start studying those books, those 12 books, you can do that. But if you're ready to start. So you can start AKONGUASUA, just so you can see the reason why we had the information on our flyer and the images that you see on the flyer. So you see the books that we have in the middle. You see the collage of the 42 online courses on this side. This is an image of myself when I was in front of the temple of Ramesu II in Kanit in Nubia, so-called Abu Simbel, when we had one of our study tours to ancient Kemet, teaching in front of the temple and so forth. This is Nana Abena Aramita, so-called Harriet Tubman. This is Martin Delany, considered the grandfather of Black nationalism and so forth. And we have a Per-A, so-called pharaoh from ancient Kemet, and a sacred ancestress from ancient Kemet here. This image right here is from the original Decoration Day, May 1st, later called, after the Civil War, later called Memorial Day. A number of children participating in the honoring of the fallen ancestresses and ancestors who fought in the war of our liberation to force the end of enslavement. So this image is from that, from the late 1800s and so forth. But so we're just showing here that there's always been this, and from that period, the late 1800s, when we began to establish various historically Black colleges and universities, over 100 Black universities and colleges across the continent of North America and so forth. We started that process back in the so-called 1800s. During the time of Martin Delany, during the time of Nana Abena Aramita Harriet Tubman, we started our own institutions to educate ourselves and send our people out into the world dealing with holistic health, culture, spirituality, trustery, nation building, and so forth. And our institution, AKONGUASUA, is part of that tradition. We have to educate ourselves, empower ourselves, and go out in our communities and transform ourselves. So this is why we started that. It's been over a quarter of a century of research, publishing 31 books and now 32 with the anthology, curating 42 courses, and all of the information that we've gathered over the past 28 plus years and so forth, going into these courses and taking that information over the past decade plus into the field of behavioral health with youth as well as adults, and testing this information and the approaches that we use to convey this information to youth as well as adults, no matter what their station in life is, and seeing the effectiveness of it. This is how this came into being. So if you have any questions, just, reach out to us, but you can enroll now and start your process now, start your process towards that bachelor's degree in philosophy, Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy, Nimdeesem, and also your first certification within the first 2 weeks, so you can start as an edupreneur, education entrepreneur right away. So yet I'll say we thank you all for joining in with us. And Yebeshabio, we will meet again, and we look forward to studying with you and handing out these degrees. Yerase.
Wow.